Welcome to the All Things Endurance podcast. I'm your host, Rick Prince, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Sokolovas today, otherwise known as Dr. G. Dr. G is the high performance director of USA Pentathlon. He is also the owner and senior physiologist with Global Sport Technology. So, welcome to the call. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to be here and involved with USA Pentathlon, mostly with USA Swimming. That's what I started to work when I was
Okay.
recruited by USA Swimming a long time ago. And since I did pentathlon myself, I understand this sport really well and understand multi-event sports such triathlon as well. So that's why I've been involved in these sports for entire life.
Awesome. I love that. Well, that being said, maybe you could tell us even a little bit more about yourself, as far as your educational history, work history. I know you had said sort of some of the areas you're working in right now, and some maybe in addition to your role, some of the stuff that you're doing with those organizations.
So I grew up in a small country in Europe, in Lithuania, which is uh, in East Europe of European, and used to be part of former Soviet Union, and that's why my education is very unique, I would say, because I did my undergrad and postgrad studies in Lithuania, then I moved to Russia, did my PhD studies in Russia back in 80s. And then moved back to Lithuania, was working professor at university, teaching training methodology, recovery, a few other things, and also was dean of coaching education. So then back probably about 30 plus years ago, USA Swimming started to be interested in my studies that we're doing, especially in creating computer software for training. And so then several USA Swimming representatives came to Lithuania to university, to my lab. They looked at that and they took a lot of stuff with them to learn more and discuss internally at USA Swimming. And eventually they offered me the position to move to United States and work with USA Swimming back in 1999. So
Mhm.
besides that, besides the PhD studies, I'm doing a lot of research and creating software for coaches and athletes can use as well, mostly related to swimming. However, we're using this software for other sports as well. So we have e-coach software, several versions already released. And the first software, in fact, I created back in 1985, and we didn't
Oh,
have any
wow.
PCs at that time.
Yeah.
I was my PhD student. So we studied rates of adaptation and how to design training based on rates of adaptation. And that's very
Hmm.
unique studies, not known too much in the Western world. Even now, I'm surprised that people are not interested in this studies so much. But that leads directly to creating computer programs in sports. And that's what I'm still teaching at university classes online, how to create computer programs in sports.
Hmm.
Then after moving to United States, started to work with USA, work as director of sports science and physiology for USA Swimming. Worked with Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte, Katie Ledecky, and many other elite level swimmers. I believe between swimmers and pentathletes, I worked already with around 150 Olympic champions.
Wow.
And we are heavy testing them in physiology, recovery, as well as in biomechanics, which we developed this testing method back about 17 years ago. And now we have a lot of data also. So then after a decade working with USA Swimming, I moved to USA Pentathlon, started to work with them, basically just change buildings at US Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs in different office move. And we're working with USA Pentathlon now, which expanding sport rapidly, especially when riding was replaced with ninja or obstacle racing. That's
Hmm.
very attractive for many obstacle racers around the country, and we see the influx more athletes coming to pentathlon. And in Los Angeles at the Olympics, there will be ninja at Olympics, and I hope that that
Oh,
will be
wow.
even more attract athletes because wow, ninja at Olympics, yeah, that's in
Yeah.
pentathlon.
Okay.
Yeah. So then my created also my company a long time ago already. It's called Global Sport Technology. And that company provides a lot of services for athletes around the country, around the world as well. I'm working with World Aquatics, one of expert on their panel. and on the coaches certification courses around the world. So besides that, work with Pan Am Aquatics as well, also on coaches education and testing swimmers around the world, as well as triathletes and pentathlets. We're also creating multiple software as a talent ID and development database, which is probably around 10, 12 software online, which analyzes performance progression, workload volumes, athletes' biological maturation based on the height changes, analyzes recovery as well, energy zones based on heart rate and times, and everything is there in one database. So coaches can track, evaluate even cost of the performances. It's very good for the federations as well and clubs to see how their athletes are performing, what needs to be done in order to perform better. And obviously doing a lot of biomechanical research, developing new methods to test biomechanics to measure and exactly tell what's the problem in swimming. Is it beginning, middle, end of the stroke?
Mm.
Beginning of the breathing or end of the breathing? Is it kicking the problem? So, and once we already accumulated a lot of data, as I told, last 17 years, we have already close to 90 Olympic champions tested in this biomechanics in swimming Olympic champions. And once we have this data, we can clearly see that nobody swims ideal stroke technique. Yeah, many coaches are talking about ideal stroke technique, but after 5 years, they talking there is another ideal stroke technique because somebody
Yeah.
breaks world records, swims way faster than previous world records. What happened with ideal stroke? There is no ideal stroke. So
Yeah.
because everyone can improve and swim faster. We're just scratching the surface how to learn to swim faster. And that's why when we tested so much, I created mathematical model how fast athletes can swim based on our understanding of ideal stroke when you're not doing typical mistakes that we see even at elite level. So we combined several swimmers in one phase, swimming phase of one swimming cycle, beginning, middle, end of the stroke, kicking, breathing technique, who is doing the best in the world or the best who are in our database at least. And then we calculated mathematically how fast the swimmer could swim. It looks
Got it.
like 3 seconds faster than current world record over 100.
Wow.
So that means we're swimming so slow. World records are pedestrian. We can
Yeah.
swim so
Interesting.
much faster if we teach athletes to swim correctly. And then I looked at how we teaching athletes in Learn to Swim program.
Hmm.
Not teaching correctly. We're teaching mistakes, which we see later, and try to fix these mistakes with different innovative drills that we developed. And we have plenty of drills. Obviously, it's not topic on this. Around 1,000 innovative drills already developed for swimming technique improvements,
Wow.
including super drills, which is combination of these innovative drills. Then athlete doesn't need to swim multiple drills, can swim one super drill. Everyone receives one super drill after our tests. And so once we created this model, I was so surprised that we can swim so much faster. And now I'm always telling if somebody breaks world record by zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2, or even 0.4 seconds or 0.5, everyone, wow, it's impossible. How you can swim that? Everything's possible. We're swimming slowly. Wait for the next 5 to 10 years. You will see
Interesting.
high school swimmers may swim faster than current world records.
Wow. That's amazing.
Just learning how to swim correctly. And as I told you, if you will implement, I call it science-based learn to swim program, more widely already multiple clubs and even countries are using. So I'm sure we'll develop generation of way faster swimmers.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Well, if you want to work with anyone on how to improve your doggy paddle, I'd be a candidate for that one.
So you're not too far from us, so that's why
Yeah.
I can come and help
There
you.
you,
In fact,
there you.
my grandkids also are based on near you. They are
Oh,
Castle
okay.
twins, so
Oh,
they're swimming in
nice.
the swim team. That's why they're already pretty good. They're
There
learning a
you go.
different way to swim.
Yeah, I love that. So you had mentioned something that I think is really interesting. The athlete's rate of adaptation. You know, coaches across, so many sports, there's so many things that coaches are taking into consideration now, especially since these sports are getting so data heavy and there's so much data out there that they can kind of sift through. But why I guess kind of what you had said. Why do you think athletes aren't taking into consideration, athletes' rate of adaptation? And maybe if you could discuss that a bit more, maybe why they're not and why they should, and maybe what that looks like.
One of primary reason, probably lack of knowledge, education in that area. But besides that, when you're talking about athlete rate of adaptation, you'll ask coaches or athletes themselves, okay, including elite level coach, how to measure rate of adaptation. Almost nobody will talk correctly unless they're familiar with our training system.
Okay.
Okay, and a lot of coaches are already familiar with our training system because they are using our eCoach software. Probably around 3,500 coaches or even more already using this software around the world.
Mm.
I'm talking swimming coaches, but actually not only triathlon coaches as well, pentathlon coaches using. So, and rate of adaptation, we should measure correctly. And like right now, how you measure adaptation? Okay, let's say in running, maybe 2 mile run, 1 mile run, depending what kind of rate of adaptation, I mean, what kind of test you want to do, aerobic, mixed energy zone, or anaerobic test. Same in swimming, maybe 20 minutes swim, okay? Or let's say 2,000 swimming or swimming 1,000, whatever coaches can create various sets, let's say 650s plus 250s from a dive, broken 200, like 100 swim plus 250s from a dive with short rest interval. There are so many different tests, okay? Is it adaptation? Do these tests show adaptation? No, they don't show adaptation. They show speed and
Mm.
time. How much you improve in this test during the training season, let's say 4, 5, 6 months of training, you improve just maybe 3, 4, 5%, depends on your level in training. And the question, is it correlating with training volumes? No, it doesn't correlate at all. Training volumes during the season increase 2, 3, even fourfold.
Mm.
Okay, you start, let's say, running, like easy running the first week of the season, maybe I'm converting swimming to running because in my head it's always swimming
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah, so you start maybe running about, depends on your level, obviously, maybe like a 20 miles, okay, 25 miles, 30 miles the first week, okay? And then you're running more, more, more. And at the end of the season, you may reach like a 50, 60, or even 70 or 80 miles per week, correct? So you're increasing in volumes per week by 2, 3, 4 folds. Okay. How much improvements on your test results? 5%, 10%? That's a maximum. What is correlation? There is no correlation at all. That's why we are not testing, we are not measuring, adaptation. We are measuring different. We're measuring power. Okay, either on longer or shorter distance power.
Hmm.
Time is the power. Speed is the power, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we're measuring power and we want to measure aerobic adaptation, it doesn't match at all. Okay. So that's why, in my opinion, yeah, it's good. Coaches have good knowledge. Okay, I improved. My swimmers improved, or my runners improved a little bit in test. I'm doing once a month the test. So it's good. I'm going in the right direction. But how you can relate that to training? Is your training correct? Is your training plan correct?
Hmm.
Okay. There is no correlation as at all. And so that's why it's so important to find tests that would correlate with that. And if we're measuring aerobic adaptation, do we need to measure time, their distance? No. What do we need to measure? We need to measure ability to maintain speed, aerobic speed, how long you can maintain. That's what we need to measure. Same
Got it.
with mixed threshold, mixed energy zone, like say threshold or above threshold, VO2 max as we call. Same with sprint, anaerobic. If you're not measuring correctly, that has very little benefits for the testing.
Hmm.
So if you are measuring correctly, then we can relate our adaptation to training, what we need to do. For example, if you improve aerobic adaptation by 10% from 1 week to other week, next week I can do 10% more aerobic training because I'm ready. Obviously, the question is, do we need that? So that's another question that we can discuss, and we have tests to evaluate if you need or you don't need. So then, if the same week 10% aerobically improve, let's say mixed energy zone threshold work improve, let's say, 5%, anaerobic 3%. That's how much I need to increase my volumes next week in these energy zones. Then it will match with my condition. Because ideal training, when you're matching your training with your conditioning. And if you're measuring time or power over any distance, doesn't matter. It's a, let's say, a longer distance or shorter distance, you're still measuring power on this distance or speed. You're not measuring the rate of adaptation. You're not measuring adaptation. Because adaptation is aerobic, mixed energy zone, anaerobic adaptation, sprint, strength training adaptation. There are a lot of different adaptations. If you want to measure that, you need to measure duration of exercise in this energy zone. Then it correlates 0.9 and higher with volumes and training that you're doing. Then you know exactly what I need to do next week, based on how much I improved aerobically, anaerobically, or sprint, or strength, or threshold, whatever is important for you. What's important, we have other tests, plenty of tests to evaluate and tell exactly to athletes what's important for them in training.
Yeah. So would you say then, I guess, to sum all that up in a nutshell, that probably the far majority of coaches out there, for lack of a better word, are sort of guessing. They have this sort of, like you said, because they're not really assessing and evaluating what needs to be assessed and evaluated, and therefore, change the training program accordingly.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a calculated guess, I would say,
Sure.
because you know what worked, what didn't work last time with the seasonal plan. Okay, you're adjusting a little bit, and you're hoping for success. Okay, I don't like to hope. I like to know exactly where I am going. That's why we're doing the tests every week, sometimes multiple even tests with constant speed, how long athletes can run, swim, or even on the bicycle to ride. Okay, I didn't do work with cycling, but my colleagues, when we studied this, when they did this studies on rates of adaptation, they studied extensively cycling and speed skating and skiing and multiple other endurance sports like rowing. So that's why there are similar rates of adaptation, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And the rate of adaptation depends on age as well of athletes. Okay, depends on gender. The younger athletes, the faster they're adapting. That's why training design for younger athletes should be different seasonal training than for adults. And what coaches normally doing? They're writing notes at the coaches' clinic from elite level coaches and trying to copy the plans and adjust for their swimmers or other sports. At least in swimming, I see clearly that happening. And then they're using the same rate of adaptation as elite level coaches have for their elite swimmers, and using the same rate of adaptation for their younger swimmers. It doesn't work. Your
Yeah.
younger swimmers adapting faster. You can increase volumes from 1 week to the other week at faster rate for younger swimmers than for adults. Elite level
Yeah.
swimmers, they train more, but rate of adaptation is slower. That's why increase of volumes, it's a slower rate. Younger swimmers train less, but rate of adaptation is faster.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we have plenty of data on that to show us clearly what is the rate of adaptation. And now we're designing software which helps us to identify, based on multiple parameters. So rate of adaptation depends not only on age, it depends on your performances. If you're at younger age, but you're already world record holder or close to world record, your adaptation will be slow because
Sure.
there is not as much room for improvement as you with lower performances. Or you're at older age, but your performances are very low. You just started the sport. Obviously, your rate of adaptation will be faster at that time.
Yeah.
But then it
Yeah.
slows down. Is it optimal to start late? No, definitely not. You'll not use all your potential that you have if you would start when you're younger. So then it also depends on gender, especially during the puberty. You know that girls maturing earlier, about 1.5 years on average than boys. So that's why rate of adaptation for girls is slower at the same age as boys because they are biologically older. Okay? So then rate adaptation depends also on multiple other parameters. For example, sprinters, middle distance athletes, they're adapting differently. distance athletes adapting more to aerobic training, better, I would say, not more, but better to aerobic training. The sprinters better to anaerobic and sprint training adapting. Okay, and that's their own physiology. You will not change sprinter to distance athlete or vice versa. You can do that a little bit, change your muscle fibers slightly, muscle fibers to one or other direction with your training. But if you would not train for, let's say, a month or so, rest, detrain, your muscle fibers will return back to the same level as it is.
Mm,
Your physiology is your physiology. It's
yeah.
better to find your event and train, which is very easy to find, again, using unique tests that we are doing as well.
Got it. Got it. That's really interesting. Well, I can tell you right now, I just turned 50. Now I do one interval and I have to take a year's rest and do again so I can I
Because
can
the recovery is slower. You
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
adapt as fast. You cannot do so quickly. And that directly relates also to daily and weekly planning, which is also incorporated in our eCoach software, because
yeah,
it's the called principles of supercompensation. Supercompensation is the phase when your recovery phase, basically when your conditioning increases more than it was initially before the practice.
yeah,
So that's a supercompensation. And it happens for younger athletes much faster and then for older athletes. So
yeah,
that's why you're not recovering as well.
yeah.
However, with the good aerobic conditioning, you're increasing ability to recover.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's always
Correct.
amazing. I started cycling fairly competitively as a junior, and then like I didn't even know what a rest day was. You just go out there and go crazy all the time. And now I'm like, I do one effort. I'm like, God, I need like a week's rest. It's
Same
so
for me. I
bad.
feel the same way. Like
Yeah,
whenever I'm running now, I would rather jog than run fast.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So this next thing I wanted to chat about, this sort of relates right back to what we were talking about as far as program design. We get a lot of questions after coaches get certified. Like, okay, great. I learned a lot about the body, how things work. And, we do have a program design section there, but that's always the area I think where people it kind of falls apart and they don't really have a good understanding of. So maybe if you could discuss some of the most important things about program design that you found over your years of working with athletes.
Oh, that's that's my whole life experience that I'm doing
Okay.
sports
Okay.
science for the
Perfect.
last 40 years already. I'm designing training, and we're designing training correctly. I don't know any other uh, uh, this companies or software or any that would design training correctly. Okay, most of people, I mean, most of companies, I know, like Training Peaks, located in Boulder, Colorado, they are advertising a lot, have a lot of clients, and designing training based on elite level athletes, coaches. Sorry, elite level coaches basically designing. Is it correct? No, I can tell that's not correct.
Mhm.
It may work for their group of elite level athletes, but is it matching with everyone? You just converting your plan to the beginner or to the average athlete or weekend warrior who just doing training during the weekend, it will not work
Mhm.
because you need to take in consideration many factors, as I mentioned already:
Yeah.
age, performances, gender, recovery ability, aerobic conditioning, and event. There are so many factors. History of training you need to take. Okay, so that's why all these factors already incorporated and studied really well by us and incorporated in our software. That's how you can design correctly. In fact, the software is designed for swimming, but as I told, we're using for all endurance sports because it's just
Yeah.
some numbers. You plug in your numbers in minutes or miles or whatever you want, and you see your plan, what would be the most optimal plan for you. Because adaptation in all endurance sports are very similar.
Yeah.
And so that's why you can use the software for any sport. And so then in order to design season correctly, you need to take also factors such as biological maturation if you're working with kids.
Mhm.
Okay. So, for example, we know that there is a so-called sensitive periods of development or critical periods of development when athletes mature during the puberty. At that time, they need to develop. It's a good window of to develop good aerobic conditioning. And if you're not developing this aerobic condition at that time, you'll be in disadvantage your entire career. because you'll not be able to recover as good. You can
Mm.
try to develop aerobic conditioning later, and you will develop some. Are you going to develop the same level as you would do from long-term training? Probably not. So that's why aerobic conditioning is critical for beginning before puberty and during at the beginning of the puberty. Later, you can increase gradually high intensity zones such as mixed energy zone, anaerobic zone, because anaerobic zone comes probably around age of 14 for girls, around 15 for boys, when they need to start increase more anaerobic. It doesn't mean they don't need any anaerobic before, they do, but they don't have enough anaerobic enzymes in the muscles, and they will not be accumulating a lot of lactate, which we see always young athletes. They don't have such high lactate as older ones because they don't have anaerobic system is not matured yet. And then later strength developing after anaerobic and other stuff. So everything overlapped, increasing one energy component like aerobic, then mixed energy zone, then going anaerobic, then going strength training, power, and so on. So, and that's definitely important to consider for long-term development. And again, we have talent ID and development database, which everything is very clearly designed for swimming, and as I told, can be used for any other sports. In fact, I'm talking now to multiple sports and even organizations outside sports to
Mm.
develop similar systems for them as well, because it's a really unique system. And there are many talent ID and development systems around the world, different big countries like Australia, Canada, they're doing, but nobody has these ideas and implement it as well as we did in our talent ID and development. So that's why coming back to the seasonal plan, we need also to design seasons correctly. And if we are designing season not based on the rate of adaptation, we're hoping that everything will be good.
Hmm.
But in our system, we don't need to hope. We see test sets, doing test sets regularly, and we have test sets calculated by the software also according to your volumes increase. In different
Mm.
energy systems will be different test sets, different progression. And normally anaerobic tests progress slower than aerobic tests. And then we can track at least if you are on the track or not. If you're not on the track, I already know after 3-4 weeks of training, you're not on the track. You're not going to reach your goals at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
change something much earlier instead of waiting until the end of the season. Oh, we didn't reach good results. We don't need
Hmm.
to wait. You
Yeah.
need to always find new stress on the body. That's also very important in any training. If you're using old stresses, body adapted already to that. You cannot
Yeah.
do the same volumes and intensities your entire season and hoping for better results.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing, you're hoping for being faster. It's not going to happen. So that's why I see a lot of some, not a lot. In the past, have been actually a lot. Now coaches more smarter become, and hopefully that our influence as well. I told many of them using our e-coach software, especially in swimming, and but in the past, I saw when coaches are coaching, so and their swimmers, let's say, swimming really well, breaking personal bests after 2 months of training.
Wow.
Okay, I'm normally a little bit surprised, but if they will continue improving, that's great. Unfortunately, they don't improve. Comes and situation, they swimming slower than 2 months during the season.
Mm.
In this, what happened? We're discussing with coach what happened. Coach shows me the plan. Okay, we build volumes, then we reach peak because we don't have more time and we're just keeping the same and then dropping volumes to the championships.
Mm.
It doesn't work. If you increase volumes, your performance increase because you are having new stress on the body. Then volume stopped increase. What's next? Is the new stress on the body? Body adapts after 1 week. Body already adapts to this stress. Body stops to improve because there is no reason to improve. There is no new stress.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing some intense work, increase, that's good. But majority of coaches in the past didn't do that. They're just
Yeah.
reaching, training, tapering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
And if you're doing the same volumes for 2-3 months, obviously nobody will improve.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It,
I find it so fascinating because I feel like, from a theoretical standpoint, a lot of coaches will say similar things to what you're saying, like, but then in practice, it falls off a cliff. I see that quite a bit too, which is always sort of interesting as well.
yeah, and also There are publications like good friend of mine, Vladimir Isurin, wrote the book on block periodization. You probably saw this book as
Yep.
well. And I
Yep.
spoke to Vladimir for many times. I actually worked with him when I did my PhD in Russia, and then
Mm.
later he moved to Israel. I moved to the United States, and he even asked me to write a uh, promotion for his book. I don't remember if I wrote or not, but I told him immediately, I disagree with this completely. My studies or our studies show that we are changing the body condition every week, and you want to
Hmm.
have block for 3 weeks, then another block for 3 weeks, then another block for that doesn't work perfectly. You need to
Yeah.
match condition at this with the volumes. If you're not matching your condition with the volumes, you're either undertrained or overtrained.
Yep. Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
very, very important in the seasonal plan.
Yeah.
Select right volumes intensities every week. How you can do that? You can you can use either our software or you can calculate yourself. Okay, but you actually don't know what rates of adaptation is. You need to know a little bit math, a little bit also how to what rates of adaptation are, and then you can probably calculate. Or if you
Yeah.
don't know math, you don't know how to do that. Yeah, I'm happy to advise, and it's not expensive software. It's right now the latest version that we released. It's costs 198, and that's forever. You create thousands of plans for
Oh,
thousands of
wow.
groups for thousands of athletes. You have forever the software.
Yeah. That's no, that's
40
a great,
years,
that's an,
40 years of research for 198.
yeah.
That's pretty good deal.
That's pretty good. So, a question for you, which I didn't put on this list of questions to ask you. So, when we were creating our certifications, we talked to a lot of these sort of high level coaches and experts, and one of them was an aerodynamic specialist, which sort of leads into the biomechanics aspect for cycling. And he was the biomechanics expert for the EF Cannondale Pro Cycling Team, and he said it was so fascinating because he has a doctorate and I think it was I forget if it was I think it might have been biomechanics, but he would talk to these athletes and say, okay, based off of all of our, time in the wind tunnel and this and this and this, here's what you need to do for your position. And they'd be like, no. Like I'm not doing it. And he said that was one of his biggest challenges was getting these elite athletes who've been training a certain way their whole life to say, okay, say, and there were always one or two athletes that would say that just leaned into the data, said, okay, that whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. Said, but the far majority were either said no or were at least somewhat hesitant. Do you find that with any swimmers or elite athletes that you coach, or even maybe not elite athletes, that they're like, okay, look, I hear what you're saying, Dr. G. It makes sense, but yeah, I'm still not doing it. Or maybe it doesn't make sense or whatever.
Used to happen that in the past, but not anymore because
Okay.
I'm more heavyweight now than used to be in
Yeah.
sports science, especially in swimming.
Yeah.
But when I moved to United States, there was a lot of resistance. Oh, what do you know? Lithuania swimming and USA swimming, we are way better. Listen,
Okay.
this is science, okay? And it took a while for me to work with coaches, but now when a lot of elite level coaches using my training system or even biomechanical testing, they already understand and they're
Hmm.
listening what I'm telling to them.
Yeah. Good. Good, good, good.
You
Yeah,
need to
because
have some, still knowledge and also success a little bit there. And obviously, success builds over the years. And for example, a good friend of mine, Ron Aitken from Sandpipers Las Vegas swim team. This is age group program, and he developed multiple Olympic medalists from age group program.
wow.
And he's using our software for training design for the last 16 years already.
That's amazing. Well, you mentioned those names out. I'm not a swimmer, but you mentioned the names Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, Ryan Lochte. Yeah, I've heard of those people. There's something there, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Once you're working with variety of swimmers and Olympic champions all over the world, like example, last Olympics, seven gold medals have been won by our swimmers who are directly working with me and with the training methodology as well as biomechanics that we're
Wow.
offering.
Well, there you go. It's there you go. Um, so there are, maybe this falls also into sort of that testing that you were speaking of. There's a lot of different physiological tests out there. Probably the most commonly known are, VO2 max, lactate, all that kind of stuff. Are there any, whether it be a singular test or multiple tests that you deem kind of the most valuable, or is it more of just what are you trying to, train? Like, what's the application? Okay, here's the test that goes along with it. So, I want to get your thoughts on the physiological testing aspect.
I mean, physiological tests obviously help you to understand your physiology and what direction training is going if you're doing that regularly. And regular tests always better than nothing.
Yeah.
We have to do some testing. Okay. What I like to do recovery tests and see what happens during the recovery time. Okay, how fast you're recovering. And for that purpose, already for the last 35 probably years or so, we are using lactate clearance test. I developed huge database for USA swimming and also continue testing this lactate clearance test that shows ability to recover, especially if you are testing this test regularly during the season. After standard swim, for example, in swimming, or in running. We also did with pentathlete this test as well in running and swimming, which is interesting to compare. Even the same athlete has different physiology in running than swimming. Okay,
Got it.
and that reason probably for that is because vertical position running on land and swimming on horizontal in the water, athletes are not as stressed physiologically. Physiological stress is higher in running than in swimming.
Mm.
Recovery is faster as well, not as high peak lactates, not as high heart rate maximums in the water as on land, even for the same people. There's significant differences. And that's probably
Got it.
also the reason why swimmers can train more. Obviously, pounding ground with legs, you injuring your muscles more as well. That's another reason. But swimmers train way more than runners.
Yeah.
Michael Phelps was coming here to Olympic Training Center for the altitude training camps. So he was swimming 110, 120K per week.
Wow.
Some runners are not able to run as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was spending in the water 5, 6 hours, sometimes even more, to accomplish
Yeah.
the weekly volumes. Are
Yeah.
runners
Well,
running 6, 7 hours a day? No, they're not
yeah.
running 6, 7 hours a day because they will be injured, constantly injured if they would run so
Yeah.
much.
Well, I
Yeah.
I had a good friend in college who was on the swim team, and I forget what time he got up at like 5 or 6 a.m. every day, swim practice, and then he would do swim practice later in the day. I was running track and cross country. I'm like, oh man, I'm never switching over to that sport. I can I can barely handle one workout a day, let alone two. Yeah, they do incredible, and that was on, like what was it, D2 college, let alone an elite swimmer like Phelps.
Yeah, exactly. So then besides lactate clearance, you definitely want probably to test your threshold. What's your threshold? You can do that step test with heart rate. And we have the software online as well. Coaches and athletes themselves even can enter results in the step test and see what is threshold pace, what is anaerobic pace, at what heart rate, what speed as well at the same time. We also have another option to software developed is based on time trials in practice from push, for example, swimming, not from a dive. 50, 100, and 200, they're swimming all out, and then we're calculating so-called individual record curve, relation
Okay.
between speed and distance. And that's also a very precise method to evaluate speed, especially over shorter distances. Because longer distances, you can use heart rate as well, but heart rate, you're reaching the maximum at VO2 max. So later heart rate is not increasing, but you can exercise at faster intensity than maximum heart rate. That's
Hmm.
anaerobic. That's why heart rate is good until the anaerobic energy zone starts. And then we need something else to classify sprint. Where is your sprint? Where is your lactate peak zone? Where is your lactate moderate zone? And so on. And the heart rate is not going to show that. And
Yeah.
and that's why this another test that we're doing as well to evaluate. And as I told, both software are online available for coaches, and many coaches are using this and talent idea and development database, and even some countries purchase this talent idea and development base and installed on their servers, on their computers, because they don't
Mm.
want to share with others and they want to use for themselves only, which is great. I think it's awesome. They want to do more scientifically train, develop athletes.
Yeah.
Talking about the test, like a step test, heart rate, I'm very skeptical of all heart rate monitors as well that generates your speed and generates your energy zones, because the
Hmm.
heart rates are based on percentage, which is linear relation between heart rate and speed.
Hmm.
It's not linear. every physiologist know that it's
Sure.
exponential. Okay. And why these companies are using that? No idea, quite frankly. It's a puzzle for me. Who is
Yeah.
advising them? Are they
Yeah.
just themselves without any education? They decided to create based on percentage. I know it's easier, but it's not difficult. Our software online does that perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
and you're talking in running and triathlon. A lot of people talking about zone two or like a gray zone, as you mentioned as well. I mean, it's everywhere indicates percentage from the maximum.
Yeah.
No, everyone has different percentage from the maximum.
Yeah.
It's not correct.
Yeah. I love it. So let's take that and actually kind of segue into the next one because I feel like right now, as you know, or I'm sure you know, the hot topic right now is zone two training, right? Like this is what everyone should be doing. You should, you need to be out there, just going nuts on this stuff if you want to improve. So to get your thoughts maybe on, well, I mean, obviously you've already, extrapolated on some of that, but yeah, maybe we could talk about the whole zone training because to your point, most of it I feel like is based off of, heart rate and things like that out there. And then sort of that so-called base training period, during the season when people are doing, quote unquote zone one, zone two training. So maybe if you could just elaborate on the whole zone two sort of attention right now that it's getting, and then what your thoughts are on all of this.
Okay, I will start with basics exercise physiology. What is zone one and zone two? That's aerobic training, correct? How many zones are in the muscles? How many metabolisms that recycles ATP molecules? Three. There are no more zones in the muscles than three: aerobic, anaerobic, aerobic metabolism, anaerobic, and creatine phosphate, sprint. That's it. All other zones are creations in our head and coaches' heads.
Okay.
There are no other zones except three. Yes, I understand. You can split the zones in multiple subzones, not
Sure.
multiple, at least two subzones in one. That's what we're doing as well. And there's a big zone between aerobic and anaerobic. We call it mixed energy zone, which is above anaerobic threshold. And until you hit anaerobic energy zones, until you hit VO2 max. Okay. So it's a pretty big. There are a lot of exercises. That's why to manage training, obviously we need to split the zones. So what we're doing, we're splitting, we're having not three zones. Normally we're having either four or five. The more advanced athletes are, elite level athletes, the more energy zones probably we need because they're different. Let's say we can have the same aerobic set would be jogging, okay, like a zone one or even zone two. Even I looked online what means zone two, right, before our talk, and
Yeah.
they tell it online. They told me that's up to 70% of maximum heart rate, which is completely aerobic training. Okay, so and even up to 90% is still aerobic training. It's still zone two based on normal physiology
Hmm.
understanding. Okay, 90%. It's obviously it's harder for you to run 90% than 70%, but you're gonna improve more if you're running faster.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
or you're swimming faster. You're gonna improve more aerobic conditioning. Even some studies indicate that if you insert some sprints in your aerobic training, for example, you're jogging, not necessarily jogging, let's say you're running aerobically. Let's say 800s today on the track. Okay,
Oh
eight
God, my
hundreds.
legs hurt just hearing that.
Yeah, aerobic running. And if after every two you insert 100 sprint all out, your number of mitochondria, which is aerobic basically parameter physiological, will increase more. So that's why
Yeah.
you have to have some sprint work. And just jogging easy, zone one or zone two, will not lead to good results.
Yeah.
Yes, if you never did that before, it's good basic training, to prepare yourself for high intensity work. But high intensity work leads always to better results
Yeah.
than zone one or zone two.
Yeah.
And that's why elite level athletes, they're not doing too much zone one, zone two. If you look at sprinters, they're told not doing anything besides sprinting, which is too much. It's also not very good. And I had several discussions with national team track and field coaches. Why are you just sprinting? Give them ability to develop aerobic fitness, then they will be recovering faster. Now they run 100 in practice and they need 10 minutes rest. because they cannot
Right.
do another sprint. Our swimmers can do like not 100 running. It's about 25 meters swimming. They can do 25 sprint. In 30 seconds, they could do again 25 all out.
Mm.
Runners cannot do that
Yeah.
because they just don't have aerobic fitness enough. Then
Yeah.
coaches are going, oh, you will kill fast twitch muscle fibers. I doubt why swimmers don't kill fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously it's different locomotion in the water, different technique and other stuff. But at the same time, if as I mentioned already today earlier, so if you give this your runners after good aerobics training, give your runner you kill a little bit aerobic sprint fibers. You don't kill actually, you move them a little bit slightly in aerobic. Then give them rest for several weeks. It moves back because that's your
Yeah.
physiology.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. And
Interesting.
then once your aerobic condition is better, you're recovering faster. You can do more sets and practices at high speed and tempo. More high intensity practices per week. Now they train one day and then 2 days jogging because they cannot do anything after that. But they're
Yeah.
just not recovering well.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
No, I
So
love that because I think that there's this misnomer clearly that if I'm a sprint athlete, I just do sprints. If I'm an endurance athlete, aerobic, I just do aerobic. And I think one of the things that the messaging that I hear the most, that I see the most, whether it be in, just publications and running magazines, even in our coaches group, is that unless you do that, you get the most physiological adaptation, capillary density, mitochondrial density, all these things with zone 2. If you go above zone 2 into that, to your so-called mixed zone, and God forbid you do any type of intensity, then you just torpedoed the whole thing, and you're not going to get fitter. Whereas it's completely not true, right? I mean, as you
it's
just
not
said,
true at all.
and I want, do you know, or do you have any inkling where that sort of, I mean, theory or whatever you want to call it came from, or how it keeps getting sort of uh just passed along, and it becomes almost a narrative that becomes fact out there. It's really bizarre.
I'm sure it came from some research study, but a lot of you cannot believe every research study that is
Sure.
done. Okay. And so some research studies are good and a lot of them are good, but you need to look also understand that better. If a
Yeah.
research study was done, let's say, okay, we did like a aerobic training for 1 week or 2 weeks, let's say, with sprinters, and we see their fast twitch muscle fibers move to the more slow twitch muscle fibers. Okay, there are some intermediate muscles fibers that move, and you're announcing that for the entire world. Okay, what happens with coaches? They read that, oh my gosh, we cannot do any aerobic training,
Yeah.
but they don't look beyond that, beyond
Yeah.
these benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I find that to be true, especially in today's age with social media and TikTok and all these things, where these just little sound bites, right? Where like I read a study, I cherry pick whatever information I want out of it, and then I just, go to market with that and just go crazy. And yeah, it's incredible how things, become sort of these things that just everyone believes. Um, to your point, and this is another area I think that kind of goes along with what we were just talking about, and this is sort of another myth that I hear that happens, that I hear repeated all the time, is this gray zone training. And I'm sure you've heard that, like in between, base aerobic, zone 1, zone 2, and super high intensity is just gray zone, and it's the useless zone. There's no physiological adaptations. It's just basically a complete waste of time. So I know we already spoke of this, but if you could just maybe talk about this a little bit more.
Yeah, correct if I'm wrong. I just looked also online before our meeting. What is gray zone? As physiologists, I don't understand that. There is
Right.
aerobic, anaerobic, and sprint.
Yeah,
Okay. So what is gray zone? It looks like it is like threshold and above threshold exercise.
exactly. Yeah.
It has huge benefits.
Yeah. Right.
Huge benefits.
Yeah.
All our swimmers training in the gray zone regularly. And
Yeah.
future elite level swimmers who are age group swimmers right now, they train huge volumes in the gray zone, and they will
Yeah.
gonna break world records.
Yeah.
So I don't see how you can deny that. And if you can ask Katie Ledecky, he'll probably 70-80% of your training is in gray zone.
Right. Right. And no one's going to argue
So
with
you're
those
denying
results.
that she is wasting time and winning so many gold Olympic medals and breaking world records?
Yeah.
Michael Phelps, the same way.
Yeah.
His coach Bob Bauman coaches for many years the similar way, and obviously training a little bit changes, but at the same time, he developed now Leon Marchand from France, who broke Michael Phelps' records and won 4 gold medals, individual gold medals at Olympic Games. It just, where this knowledge coming from, that it's huge waste of time. I heard another knowledge, this waste of time that people talking in swimming, that aerobic yardage is waste yardage. You don't need to swim so much aerobic. You just do sprint specific work. And that leads also to another problems. And we have plenty of swimmers to support that who did just sprint training. And I was trying to convince their coaches when they were younger, you have such a talented swimmer. Why are you doing just sprint training? This age, they need to do aerobic fitness because they need to build aerobic conditioning, which will help them to train later when they will be at the elite, recover better. As I told them, especially during the sensitive period of development, when it's a window of opportunity to develop aerobic conditioning. And they don't believe, no, we are good.
Yeah.
Good luck. So now I'm sure they are super disappointed. There are a lot of swimmers like this. And you can see that evaluate perfectly. We have tests to evaluate that, which is very simple. I call it relative endurance. And I'm surprised that in US, physiologists are not taught in this relative endurance test. It's so simple. You don't even need to test. You just enter your best times over various distances, even enough 2 distances only, and we have software online again in the Talent ID, and the ratio between times will show you what direction your training should go. Are you able to maintain speed from shorter to longer distance well, and you have low ratio between times on various distances, or you're not able to maintain speed well? You have high ratio, and that will tell that your training is not going in the right direction. You need to change. Because a lot of coaches coming to my clinics and asking, what should I do? More sprint power training anaerobic or more aerobic? Let's look together at relative endurance. And I'll tell you exactly what every athlete needs to be done. And then you're adjusting your seasonal plan and you'll be more successful improving either speed or aerobic fitness, depending on what you're missing. And that's the easiest way to analyze what you're missing. You don't need even any physiological tests.
Got it. That's amazing. That is amazing. One of the things I love about, again, I said I'm not a swimmer, definitely not a swimmer, but I love watching like the Olympics or seeing these photos of Katie Ledecky, like all by herself. The camera's following her. It looks like she's swimming by herself because there's no one. They're like a lap behind at this point. She finishes. She could have like taken a shower and come back, gotten in the pool, and then they finish. It's just incredible, her domination. It's wild to see.
Yeah, I mean, she's an amazing athlete. I worked with her when she was a youngster back before first gold medal in 2012 Olympics. So make the changes in her swimming technique. There's still so much things she can change.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm sure we'll see even faster swimmers swimming in the future.
Yeah.
Already now, some swimmers breaking Katie Ledecky's record. Already broke world records on the 400 freestyle, but 800 and 1500, she still owns this records. And she's so amazing, swimming longer distances. Although age of peak performance is already probably passed because she had the best times back in at 19 and 20 years old, which was optimal age for distance swimmers. For female distance swimmers, we have peak performance age for every event, also in our database online and Talent ID. And but she still works very hard, and she's still so far ahead of other swimmers, even passing age of peak performance. It's just amazing to see when she swims.
It's incredible. I love when I do watch swimming and I watch her, it just blows my mind. It's so awesome. Well, Dr. G, thank you so much for being on this podcast. This has been such great information. I love everything you had to say. I love that it's, just take the guesswork out of it, let's get back to common sense and what actually matters, right?
Absolutely. And if you need any help, and if your listeners need any help, we are always happy to help. We are working with a lot of athletes, and not only elite athletes, but also at any age, including masters athletes. They also love all this stuff, and they are very excited to use science behind the training design instead of just guessing and copying somebody's plan.
Yeah, no, I love that. So as Dr. G mentioned, you can check out his website, globsport.com. And then the Talent ID website he mentioned is www.talentidd.org. So you can check out those. If any of our listeners are interested in a UESCA certification, you can use the code ATE75 for $75 off. And again, Dr. G, thank you so much for coming
You're
on this
welcome.
podcast.
Ja-
I feel like there's
yeah,
so
just,
much more we can chat about, maybe on another podcast as well at some
yeah.
point.
I think you mentioned .com, globsport.com. It's globsport.org.
Oh, .org. Okay, so globsport.org. Got it. Thank you for
Correct.
that correction. I appreciate that. Yeah, so
Okay, no
please,
problem.
yeah, so our listeners can definitely go there and check out everything that Dr. G's been talking about as far as his platform and how to take the guesswork out of training. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Looks like, well, I guess that's a screenshot behind you. I was going to say it looks like it's great weather in the Springs, but it's great weather up here as well.
Great Colorado.
Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it. Well, thank you so much, and let's do this again sometime soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking
Okay,
forward to that, Rick. Bye.
thank you so much.